Welcome to the Property Couch, where each week you get to listen to two of Australia's leading property experts. Bryce Holdaway, co-host of Location Australia on Foxtel's Lifestyle Channel, and Ben Kingsley, chair of Property Investors Council of Australia and the 2014 and 2015 Property Investment Advisors of the Year.
All right, folks, you're on the Property Couch, where each week Ben and I bring you the insider's guide to property finance and money management. Hello, mate.
2 words.
What?
Royal Commission.
Oh,
into banking.
Into banking.
Oh, no, I think we need to talk a little bit about it.
All right.
Yeah. But before we do, and then it's Q&A, which we'll bring it up. We'll bring it home.
We'll
bring it home.
We're excited. We get answer around Q&A day. Well, I've just been thinking. I've done this intro for about 170 odd episodes. All right.
Yeah.
And I just wonder why we haven't called our mate over with the voiceover and just say, what
Jason? Jason Gray. Yeah.
Just say each week, and then I can just go, "G'day, mate. How you going?"
Yeah. Well,
have we ever thought about that?
Yeah. Well, hey, Jason would happily do it. If anyone needs Jason's services, let me know. Reach out to me. He's a very good voiceover man.
He is a very good voiceover man. I probably should reach out to him and say, "Mate, can you just extend the opening just to that little bit?"
Yeah.
But anyway, how are you?
Good. You?
Very good.
All right.
Very good. So, mate, straight off the bat.
Oh, I just think it's important that we, there's a lot of media around it, and probably a few weeks back, brokers and introducers were under the pump. Yeah. So I just think it's important to understand. I mean, introducers, having your gym owner and your hairdresser and all that getting money to introduce lending, that's just a no-go for me. That just doesn't make sense to me at all. Maybe the accountant, maybe the lawyer, maybe, but they're not doing enough work for the money that they should have got. So I definitely think that the introducers are a bit rough. Mortgage broking, on the other hand, we're licensed, we're accredited, we're regulated. So I don't see any reason why that shouldn't be a change. But the reality is as we know, they've found a couple of bad eggs amongst 12,000 brokers out there. And I think, throw the book at them. If they've done the wrong thing, absolutely throw the book at it, but put it into context in terms of how many loans that they've found compared to literally the hundreds and hundreds of thousands of loans that are submitted on an annualised basis. So I think it's helpful. And for those who are from the Royal Commission, I'm going to put my PICA hat on and just give them a little tip. Okay, how can we clean up this mess, Bryce? If it's such a big mess, how can we clean it up? Well, I've just got one piece of recommendation that should come out on the other end of the Royal Commission. Regulate property investment advice. You heard it first here on the couch. It's something that we've been going on about. I've worn pipper hats and picker hats. If you regulate it, then these people who are supposedly getting people into financial stress and all those things, all of a sudden, a little harder to do it. A bit more barrier of entry for these spruikers and these people who aren't worried about helping their clients build wealth, but helping themselves build wealth. So I take to task why we haven't got a regulated property investment market. And this is direct residential property we're talking about here, because obviously, if we're talking about REITs, real estate investment trusts and so forth, they all fall under the Corporations Act and under, giving actual financial advice. Why don't we do it? Okay, we're ready for it. Okay, we need a runway, a couple of years to get everyone up to speed in terms of educated. QPIAs are, the first entry point to that. But it does annoy me when I see them playing on the fringes. And if property investment is such a difficult thing, rather than just trying to blanketly stop people from doing it, here's an idea. Make it so you go and speak to a professional. And they say, well, not right now. It's probably not good for you. If you want to invest, these are the things you need to go and change. Demonstrate that you can change those things. Come back and we'll have a chat in 6 months' time, or whatever it may look like.
Because if you think about that recent case on the 730 report, Ben, where it was largely some poor investor who got into a lot of debt.
She did,
but it was actually it appeared to be that the mortgage provider or the mortgage broker had potentially
and there was a bit of exposure,
allegedly put in incomes that she wasn't earning. So
that's not on.
And I know So you're right. It's a few bad eggs, but for generally speaking, if you're talking to the reasonable person in that industry, they're offering choice, they're offering flexibility, they're offering the ability to help people who are time poor, they're offering people the ability to get a borrowing strategy rather than a borrowing capacity. Just by taking away or even talking about the fact that they don't have a place in the marketplace is not a good thing for the borrower.
And you've heard it before here. I've said it a couple of times over the journey. If a mortgage broker is telling you to not declare some interest that you might have in a debt, or to not declare your kids, to try and work around the regulation, run a mile. Because ultimately you're also committing the fraud. If you're not disclosing, also the buck's on you as well. If you're not disclosing to your broker your situation, then you are committing fraud. So it's really important that people understand that. If a broker's pitching a great new way of getting around, like, brokers have a challenging job, right? They've got literally thousands of loans they need to be across, and probably usually around 20 to 30 different credit policies. Now, if your situation is that you've got, you're on maternity leave, you should be disclosing that, right? Now, if one bank says we don't need to know that, well, we're running by their credit policy. So it's important to understand when it becomes deceptive and misleading, as opposed to when it's clearly trying to do the right thing by the customer. So it's real clear. If you can't afford it, don't stretch yourself. I mean, in that particular lady's case, what did she have? 13 properties. $3.7 million
of debt
as a nurse. Come on. I mean, seriously? Like, what is the 13 properties? And she's still got some equity there, but she's didn't understand the risks. So, I mean, yeah, look, there's risk in property. We've talked about risk before. It's frustrating that people think that this is every post's a winner in property. It's not. You don't always make money in property. There are risks. There's no guarantees. To sit here and say, well, who lent me that money and how many more property? She needed a plan. She obviously didn't have a plan. The reality was, she just said, all right, I'm going to get another one. And if her broker was there just encouraging her to go another one and another one and another one and another, it's like, well, when do I stop? Get the cash flow, work it out, work from an end goal in mind, and you'll be better served for that.
And Ben, if anyone actually knows that particular lady and she needs some help, let us know.
Yep.
We'll help her.
We'll run her numbers for her.
Absolutely.
We'll help clean her up in terms of completely FOC, free of charge.
Yeah.
I don't care. I think her name might have been Linda. It's, we're going back a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
We've only just been able to talk to her about it now, but it's like, seriously? And also, here's my passionate plea for everyone out there. If you're not a member of PICA yet, all right, it's really important that you jump onto the PICA website and you pay your $5 and you become a member. I mean, it's run by the people, for the people, all about property investment. So you're going to be able to network and work in with other people as well. So, pica.asn.au, really important to just jump on there and get that $20 for a 5-year membership. Well, now we are on a bit of a recruitment drive. We've got our national board set up, and we're also now starting to set up our state councils. But we still have opportunity for a Queensland-based, predominantly Brisbane-based board member to join at the national level, and we also need applicants to join at the state level. And that's just not in Queensland. We also need to build out our state councils in every state. So if you're interested, just go to the PICA website, which is www.pica.asn.au, and go under About Us, and then you can see Apply to Join. So that's where you'll basically find the information to put your application forward for state council or joining the national board. And again, we will, as many volunteers as possible, we'll then set up our area chapters. We want to basically educate and advocate on behalf of property investors.
Yep.
And that's Property Investors Council of Australia.
PICA.
PICA. Okay, so
.asn.au. Ben, what do you think that if anyone's listening, I think I've got to get around to that. What do you think this is your chance, if anyone's got some objections as to why they wouldn't? Because clearly the big picture is you're going to have a voice.
Yep.
But their name's not going to be sold.
No.
They're not going to be sold. There's no pitching. No. There's no database sharing.
There's no database sharing. It's literally, it's for them. It's for the 2 million property investors that are out there. Because, look, there is some challenges coming. We already know.
What are you going to do with the money, Ben?
Well, what we plan to do with the money is obviously we want to be able to educate, but we also want to be able to lobby. So it's advocacy and education. So when they're making decisions around changes to the property market and housing affordability, bring us into the conversation. We're the landlords that help, bring supply into a marketplace as well. When you're sort of talking about negative gearing and capital gain tax and what we would do, I mean, they're running all these, ridiculous models on what sort of tax revenues they would get, but they're not changing what will happen in terms of buyer behaviour. They're just thinking that everyone's going to do exactly the same thing. So it's really important that money is about protecting your investment. Number one, if you're already an investor, last thing you want to see, and the last thing the economy needs to see, is property prices dropping. All right, that will have a big effect on confidence and sentiment, and then ultimately a big effect on the economy, broadly speaking. So it's really important that you take a minute of your day, stop the podcast now, and then get on your phone, whatever it is, and go across there and make your payment.
I made the payment on the phone. It's really simple. Ben, who's earning an income out of PICA?
No one.
No one.
It's completely voluntary.
No one's drawing an income.
Not for profit. No one's earning an income. We do hope that we will get thousands and thousands of members, and we're approaching our first 1,000. So we're building up to that first 1,000. But we want to build that out. So one day, yes, we might have to have an administrator come in, and because there's a lot of people.
There's no one in the ivory tower pulling an income.
Nope.
It's only to get the job
done.
It's
all volunteered by the board level at this stage until we build it out. It's really important to understand.
So we can put people's minds at ease. They're putting $5 in. No one's drawing a salary from it.
No one.
Yep.
No one. I mean, we've got to run the website. We've got to host the web
expenses,
services.
your costs.
All expenses. And as a member, it's yours.
Yeah.
So we'll be, the AGM, you'll be getting your, the update. This is what we spend our money on. This is basically what we're trying to do. And our state councils and our area chapters, you can connect into the area chapters. So we're building those out at the moment. And you can go and have an evening and just talk property. Do what it, and you'll have the board members around Australia, including myself, who are going to get out into the community and basically have a chat to people about property. Pros, cons, challenges, what you need to line up, all the ducks in a row.
And for anyone who's listening who's wanting to see that as an opportunity, Ben, to network with all other investors, how are you going to protect them from people with ill intentions?
Well, if anyone's sitting there spruiking that they're in a business, then that's it.
They're out.
Shop's out. Shop's shut. So, anyone who wants to talk to me about what I do in my business, that's not the environment. What I'll talk to you about is opportunities in terms of how you go and do it. But you'll never hear me talk about my business when it comes to PICA. I expect everyone else who's also seeing that as an opportunity to network, they might be a mortgage broker, and that's fine. They give their professional opinion like we do on this podcast, where it's like, here's the deal, this is what you need to do, and potentially go and seek some advice. If they're there and they build trust and build a relationship with people and people want to work, fine. But the point being is they can't walk into any of those, town hall meetings and go, oh, look at me, I run this business and here's my business card. I don't want that to be the environment because this is about investors owning the association and running it.
Very well said. So $5, folks, pica.asn.au. Do your $5, become a member. Andrew,
I didn't know where that was going after I just wanted to talk about the Royal Commission. But look, good news is we're going to see some opportunity here. The mortgage stuff will get out of the way, and then it'll be on to farming and all of the sort of extra stuff that's happening and insurances. So that's a big part for us. But certainly from our point of view, brokers play an incredible job in terms of giving choice. Choice to the punter. And without that, you're going to go back to the bad old days of bigger margins in mortgages. The reality is we're seeing that too because, I know we've got a question coming up around the second tier lenders and so forth, but we're absolutely seeing how it's happened. In the last few weeks, we've seen NAB drop their investor loan rate. So they're seeing market share being pulled away. This is a classic case of winning business, and they're willing to drop their margin. So that says to us that brokers do have a role to play in giving customers great outcomes. So I will stand by the professional broker any day. Those ones who are doing the wrong thing, stretching people beyond their means or basically, committing fraud.
Shame on you.
Yep. Then, you'll get your serve.
Absolutely. All right, well said, mate. So today, just as we launch into our Q&A Mindset Minute, the recent passing of Stephen Hawking. However difficult life may seem, there is always something you can do and succeed at, Ben. And no better example than him. And related, Albert Einstein said, everybody's a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its life believing that it is stupid.
I like that.
Yeah,
It's
so
really powerful.
there's a gift in all of us. We just got to make sure we know what to look for.
Everyone go out and find it.
Yeah,
Go find your niche.
So hopefully that kickstarts your week as you listen to this podcast, Ben. But we've got a few speak pipes. People have been writing into. Well, no, they haven't been writing into us. They've been speaking into us.
Yep. And they're going to get a book. These three questions that we're going to answer today.
Definitely going to get a book. So let's listen to Nick's question. Here we go.
Hey Bryce and Ben, love the show. Thank you so much for the content you put out. Been listening since day one. My name's Nick. I'm recording from New Zealand. My question is, I purchased a house and land package in Lansdale in Perth in 2012. It's next to the parks, next to the school. Beautiful place, nice places around it. My question is, should I play the long game and hold on to it, or should I look at selling it and placing my money elsewhere? It's cash flow neutral, so it's not costing me anything. It's rented out. I'm paying the debt down as well through my own cash flow. And the only other thing is I'm at university, so if I was to sell it, I wouldn't be able to get another place. I wouldn't be able to get a mortgage for another 2 years until I graduate. I'm studying finance and economics. Thanks to you guys, you inspired me. Any feedback? I know it's a $1 million question whether I should hold or sell, and I'm sure you get asked a lot. But yeah, any advice would be great. So it's in Lansdale in Perth, and I'm wondering if I should sell it or hold on to it. That's about it. Thank you so much, guys. Absolutely love the show. Keep up the good work.
There you go, Ben.
Kind words from Nick about, and obviously great that we've inspired you to go and help others and learn about the whole the world of money management and investment, which is great.
So thank you, Nick. Yeah, Lansdale's just on the northwest of the city, Ben. So it's, but I mean, you've hung on since 2012. It's cash flow neutral, and as you said, I'd want to know why he's looking to sell.
Yep.
Should I sell? Because we don't know enough, and
no.
We can only give general information. But if you've been through the market, it's neutral, and you're paying down the debt. That market is, it's at its darkest hours of late. So you'd like to think that, the upside is, again, we don't know how much cash flow he gets if he sells it. If there's capital gains tax, he's a student, it might be a tax-free threshold arrangement for them. But all things being equal, if they want to continue to be a long-term property investor, is I don't see, on the evidence, I don't see too many reasons for us to sell, given that it's not affecting them cash flow wise. It'd just be around how he's structuring the debt. Because if he's a uni student, if they're paying the debt down versus having it in an offset account, it means that they can't get access to the money because they have to go back to the bank to get it. Versus, so it's more about debt structuring is my query. But I wouldn't be throwing the baby out with the bathwater at this stage.
Yeah, I suppose I'm the same, Bryce. In terms of pulling the trigger on this, you're in no rush to pull the trigger. So what I got from the limited information, and again, we would sort of say, Nick, we'd need a lot more of your cash flow story than what we've got. So we're just basing this on the partial information that we've got. But there was a couple of big points in there that resonated with me. I can't go again whilst I'm doing uni.
Correct.
So I've got this 2-year piece. So you may load the gun on a sale. Not a good analogy there, but you may effectively get ready to potentially sell it if you feel. But you got 2 years to worry about that. So I'd be coming out the other side, especially given he's paying the debt down.
Yeah.
So he is creating some equity in the property, and we would expect that over the next 24 months that the Perth market is going to come off the bottom, and we'll start to see some pressure on price. We're not seeing it yet. The data's telling us we're not seeing it yet, but we're certainly not in free fall. We're not sort of seeing the location score going any further lower. It's actually starting to pick up a little bit, but it's off pretty low numbers. In terms of the amenity that you've got around the area, so you've got a lot of livability in terms of schools, parks and those types of things. That's all good. What you've obviously missed on is potentially the lifestyle elements in terms of walking to the coffee shops and all of that. So you're in suburbia, okay? And that's probably why the house and land has done what it's done. The depreciation's obviously helping you in terms of putting that together. So for me, this is a hold, and let's revisit it every 12 months. So if you're a client of mine, Nick, I'll be saying, with the information that I've got today, I'll be saying, no need to push the trigger on a sell at this point. Let's just see how it goes. But by all means, whilst you're studying, focus on getting that debt down. and we'll make an informed decision. Because what I'd be doing is I'd be putting it through things like location score, and I'd be measuring the demand and supply in that particular location over the short to medium term. I'd be looking at future supply that's coming online there, because it's unusual for us as an advisory firm to be saying, when we make a decision for people to sell, Bryce, it's a big decision.
Don't
right?
take it lightly.
You've got your
recycle costs.
Yeah, you've got your acquisition costs, your current holding costs, and then your exit and recycle costs. Because in some cases, when you get exiting out of that property, there's a loss that you've made, and that means that your deposit to go into the next one is limited. So you might have bought a $500,000 property, but all of a sudden now the next one you can buy, because it's underperformed, is only $400,000, because you've got all of that cost recycling that you're doing. So it's really, really important.
Puts a lot of pressure on the next property to do some heavy lifting just to break even.
Yeah.
So we rarely recommend people sell without seriously considering all the alternatives.
And the data is going to be that story. It's usually around the supply side, not so much around the demand side. So if demand is softish, but supply is really, really strong and forwarded to be, then the reality over the next 3 to 5 years, your opportunity cost is probably going to trigger you into a sale. And that's usually how the algorithms work when we do the number crunching in detail with the customer.
But that's the difference with our strategy, isn't it, in terms of just buying a few really good properties. Some are growth, some are yield, some are balance. So even because most people tend to measure the performance of their asset via growth, but I've had a poor performing property from growth that's just starting to pick up on the Gold Coast, but it's done an enormous amount of heavy lifting from a cash flow perspective, Ben. So it's important that we realise that at some point in the journey you're going to need a bit of both. So it might just mean that you've got it around the other way, got some income, because it's doing well on cash flow, at least neutral. We don't know if that's before or after a tax refund or tax credits that are accumulating, given that they're in New Zealand. New Zealand? Did you pick the...
Fosh and Shops? I picked it.
We got quite a few people around the world who listen to our podcast, Ben.
That's great.
Here we are thinking they're all just Australian-based.
I love New Zealand.
New Zealand?
It's one of my favourite skiing spots. Absolutely love it.
I'm there at the end of this year speaking at the New Zealand Property Investor Federation.
Oh, great.
On behalf of the Property Couch, Ben. So
beautiful.
We'll go and talk to the
how come I didn't get a gig for that one? Were they... New Zealand, was it New Zealand Property Investors Association?
Well, they just knew you'd be back here eating too many fish and chips, so I didn't have another reason. So.
Yeah, probably because I talk like that. They probably didn't want to invite me. But it's all fun. It's a great.
I've been to New Zealand once with you. When we flew in,
and we did the
the tour. We flew out, so I was there for about 26 hours. And this time I'm flying in on the Friday afternoon. I'm out on the Sunday morning. So once again, I won't be able to see that beautiful.
I'm banging. I'll let the producers.
If only people could see that.
Sorry for me banging on the piece of paper in front of them.
But the look, I don't know if anyone's seen.
You just don't know what you're doing when you bang on.
I don't know if anyone's seen any photos.
Back to New Zealand, great spot. I love it. Auckland's a wonderful place. Topography, just natural wonder. It's beautiful.
I look forward to the day that I can stay there for longer than 48 hours.
Right. So I'm passionate about my skiing over there. Also a bit easy on the trout fishing over there too. I like a little bit of fishing, so yes, I'll be looking to stay at a few lodges when the day comes that I can hang up the towel.
Did I tell you a couple of weekends ago we went to the trout farm up near Emerald here in Victoria?
No, you didn't tell me.
Came home with 12 fish.
12 trout?
And they were massive.
Brownies or rainbows?
We had salmons, we had brook trout, we had golden trout. You can look on my Insta, I'll put a couple up.
Yeah.
But Jack, my 7-year-old, because there was like 600 in the pond, right? It's like shooting fish in a barrel. It's like if you didn't get any during the day. But there's a big sign that, do not throw them back. You're buying what you pull up, right?
Yeah.
So we were at the limit, and I'm looking at Andrew going, well, I think we've got enough. And, there's 2 families, and I'm thinking, well... And so Jack just leans over, and he grabs the net, and he just leans over, and he just scoops one up without a fishing line. The biggest fish that he's ever caught in his life, just with a scoop net, because this little stray trout was just hanging around. So, mate, I would love to. I'd love to do it in New Zealand.
New Zealand. Jeez, we're off track. You could have times 2 through that section. Sorry about that. Almost tapped the tables on. I'm getting in trouble everywhere.
Well, I was just going to say, if the listeners could have seen the look you just got from this little sweet innocent Stiggy over there.
Oh yeah, she loves me. Thank you.
Good question. Thank you. Here's another one from Will.
Hi guys, my name's Will and I'm a long-time listener of the Property Couch, also an Empower Wealth client, and absolutely love hearing you guys from week to week. Love hearing your gems. My question revolves around serviceability. We've got a portfolio of currently 3 properties, looking to buy our final property in our portfolio at the end of 2018. We're a little bit concerned about our serviceability since the new APRA rules have been brought into place that affect the major banks. We want to know if there's something practical that we can do between now and the end of 2018 to improve our serviceability. And the second part to the question is, I'm assuming that these rules that APRA have brought in only apply to the majors and not to the second and third tier lenders. Is there something that we can do to increase our serviceability with these second and third tier lenders also? Looking forward to your reply, and keep up the good work, guys. Thanks.
There you go, Ben. Very good question from Will around serviceability. I think it's worth revisiting that APRA looks after deposit-taking institutions, which are typically the bigger ones, but not the second and third tier lenders, which is, forms part of the question that Will's asking. But servicing has been an issue for people who are trying to sort of find ways to get more lending, given what APRA's done. But they've just taken their hand off the throat just a little bit. But part of our strategy with our team here was to approach those second and third tier lenders, wasn't it, Ben, in terms of having your primary bank with the 4 pillars, but being able to access your standalone lending with some of these other lenders who had different servicing criteria, which made it easier to get through some of that. But it did come with some limitations, and we've covered this in a previous podcast where postcode restrictions was part of that. But generally speaking, for Will, part of that is to explore using those other second tier lenders.
Yeah, it is. I mean, first things first, as for Will, and g'day Will, I know that voice.
Yep.
So obviously he's a client of ours. So g'day to you. First things first is we always need to be conscious of people who don't push themselves too far. All right. We've mentioned it on previous podcasts, and recently it's in the media around households stretching themselves too far. And we just mentioned it earlier when we were talking about the Royal Commission. So we'll get the household cash flow in order and make sure you've got an appropriate buffer. All right, we don't want to be stretching ourselves too far. Yes, you've got a plan, and yes, it is to buy another property, and that finishes out the accumulation phase, and then it's about retiring debt, and we're happy, go lucky. Now, so there are some things we can look at. Now, I wouldn't necessarily say we have to look at them right now, but I would definitely be thinking about them in terms of how you're charging your rent. Okay, so servicing is based on your current situation inside the household. So the first thing we always look at is income. And we're not sitting here being your life coaches about going off and getting a better income. I think from memory, Will's a teacher. So from that point of view, if Will can get to the next bandwidth, and if there's anything he can do in terms of building his qualifications up where he gets a little bit of extra income, and if his wife is doing the same thing. And then the other part of that is maybe, a bit of a side hustle in terms of doing some other work. So if you're, starting to build up some work, I would be saying, if you're absolutely committed to this, Uber driving, doing some other things that are going to bring in some extra income. Now, it's going to look softer early on, but as you build that up, if you can get sort of 12 months of that Uber driving under your belt, then some lenders will definitely look at that as supplementary income. So the more supplementary income we get is the more that our servicing is going to improve. Now, some lenders are going to disregard that. Other lenders are going to say, well, it's close, but with that supplementary income, and you've been demonstrating that you're working consistently and getting good results in that area, we're going to look at basically, if it's a line ball, we might push it over the line to give you that extra $50,000 that you're looking for. So they're the other ones. Some lenders don't use negative gearing in their calculators. Other lenders have reductions in terms of the amount of rental income, the percentage that they would do. Now, the big thing, the really important thing here, Will, is it is a moving feast. And for all of the listeners, it really is a moving feast. So what we tell you today could be completely different to what we're going to be telling you a month or two out from your purchase later this year. All right. So we say, yep, do all of these things. One thing that they can't stop you from doing is getting more income. Will they tighten servicing up? I'm hearing some rumours around even further tightening. Now, that would make it very difficult. Now, even if Will did some great things, if they do something like that. But we're now also hearing APRA talking about that the speed limit has its use by date. So we might start to see lenders opening up. It's the assessment rate that's the big killer here, currently sitting in with most lenders at around 7.5%, and it's also how they treat existing borrowers. So are they treating the existing borrowers at the interest rate they're paying today, or they put a buffer on that? And that's what really killed most of the borrowing power. So for all those people who have, and this is interesting for those people who have chased the active investor strategy, where they're like, I can just keep using the rental income and keep using the rent, and I'll get my 10th property, and then I'll start buying some good ones. Well, they're really going to struggle in terms of being able to get back into the marketplace with some quality properties if they've all just been chasing those yield properties. So part of this could be that we do need to pivot, and we need to sort of look at the type of property, that last property that we're going to buy. Does that still remain a capital growth property, or do we get a balanced property and get a little bit more yield coming in off that new property? And do we also need to potentially do a dual lock property where we might have two incomes coming from that same property? So a granny flat, if we're going, say, into Perth or something along those lines, where we can get those two incomes, and that's going to push up the servicing calculator to be allowing us to do that. So there are a few things, but it's difficult because it is such a moving feast. So what I tell the listeners today may not be applicable in 6 weeks' time, where everything has to change. So the best advice I can give, Bryce, is sit down with your investment savvy mortgage broker about 3 months out from your planning. Get on everyone can get on the servicing calculators. Okay, they're pretty easy to do, so you can get some indication from the big banks, and then come and see your broker, because they're going to shop 20, 30 lenders, and they're going to be having a look. And it could mean to get there, you might have to refinance out of the majors to get into these particular players. So they're not just going to look at the next purchase, they're going to look at your aggregated borrowings to sort of see whether there's a different way in which it can go forward.
I think the important thing you said there, Ben, is just the fact that it's a living, breathing, fluid document, the plan. It's not something that you just put in the bottom drawer. And
Correct.
It's something that you review. The way that we do it, we give people a guide in terms of just checking 36-month cash flow. But if there's material changes to external, internal, and the internal is I might get a pay rise I wasn't expecting, or I might get a redundancy I wasn't expecting, or I might have a third child I wasn't expecting. So there's internal stuff within your household, but there's external stuff, including macro factors like this one, that you need to take into account. So the planning process is a fluid, constantly moving process with the eye on the prize of providing that passive income, but ultimately it's still about getting a rough amount of value so that you can then get a return on that value to give you that passive income, and ideally over time retire out all the debt.
And I hadn't heard the question before we started recording today. So the other thing that's just jumped into my mind is it's also got to do with household spending. So some lenders will have a baseline, and that's also pushed or limited the amount of what people can borrow. If you've got a detailed budget and you've got evidence of how you are spending that money, I think that's going to serve you well in terms of having that evidence. If a lender is sort of saying, well, this is what a traditional household does, because you're going to be grouped with the masses and there's going to be no individualisation of that. But if we can show and demonstrate over the last 6 months your spending habits have been reduced significantly, or even 12 months for that matter, as part of this, and you've also potentially got uplift in income moving forward. All of that is part of the submission, a very, very good submission from a very, very good mortgage broker, where any mitigating circumstances or any justification that they're trying to prove to give the credit officer confidence that they are a reliable risk and that they've got their money management in order is only going to bode well for their success in terms of being able to get that application over the line.
And in terms of confidence, Ben, if you had 3 credit cards that had 5,000 on them, you never used them just for a rainy day, and then you remove them, or even get the limits down, then they've got less of a repayment, which helps with that assessment rate. So you can still go and do an oil and grease up on your existing stuff just to fine tune and tweak around the edges.
Another classic case is car repayments, right? So most people have their car repayments, which it might be $700, $500, $700, $900, $1,300 a month, depending on what European car you've got. And that just kills borrowing power, because that's got to be serviced over a 5-year period.
Yeah.
So some people who are really committed to the long game rather than worrying about the cost of that debt will refinance that into the mortgage. That repayment will then be significantly lower, and that'll improve borrowing power even further. Now, again, I know Will's situation, so he's sharp, he's committed, he's focused, so a lot of this stuff he's already got done, but some of it is going to be outside of our control. But there's some of the ways, reduce the credit cards, don't have any short-term payment plans, Lock up all of the shop cards, the debit, anything that's just, gives you access to credit. Tidy all of that up and just basically get into the money smarts and start to, separate your essential from discretionary and document that. And then you've got a pretty good case in terms of looking at some of those second tier lenders in terms of the risk profile.
Yeah, so in summary, Ben, income, expenditure, time and target. Income, try and look for more. Expenditure, try and look for less.
Yeah.
In some cases, your time may need to get adjusted depending on what's happening in the macro.
Yeah.
And target, hopefully, if you do the other three well enough, you don't have to move the target. So.
That's right. I mean, and you may reduce your holiday spending. I mean, it depends on how focused you are on it, and that's why it is.
Will's very focused.
Yeah. Will is incredibly focused, and we've got to credit him for that. And he's going to be one of those stars that everyone will start listening to his knowledge around this stuff in the next 5 to 10 years.
Absolutely. So there you go. Good on you, Will. Thanks for that. Here's our next one, Ben, from Jamie. It's a shares question.
Oh, okay.
Let's have a look at this.
Hi guys, I came across your podcast about 6 months ago and I've been an avid listener ever since. I found it's been a really good way to start from having no idea about investing in property and to grow my knowledge. On your podcast, I heard about the book Rich Dad Poor Dad, which I purchased and I found to be a really good read. In the book, it talks about using shares as a way of raising a deposit to purchase property. I was wondering if you were aware of any podcasts or books or any other resources similar to your own podcast, but talk about trading shares. It's something that is less tangible than property, and I have a lot more trouble understanding it than I do property. And I was just wondering if there was a service that you guys knew of that was similar to your podcast on property, but just addressing shares. Thanks, guys.
Good one there from Jamie. Hey, I always think on that one, Ben, in terms of shares, it's a big field to talk about. But we always have a lot of respect for Roger Montgomery.
We do.
And his book, Valuable, because he thinks you're buying a business, not a share. So you should see the underlying value of the business over time and not get caught up in what the share market's doing.
It's value investing. It's part of Warren Buffett's sort of methodology. So yes, Roger Montgomery. And obviously from the Montgomery Investment Fund.
But you'd also go to Money News because he's a regular, I think every Tuesday night, so you get to listen to him
on
there.
Ross Greenwood's Money News show. Alan Kohler.
Who's been a guest of ours.
Who's been a guest on our show, The Constant Investor. So he's got a subscription-based setup, so you can get some information on that. Motley Fools, which are part of the Triple M group. They also have a good podcast to listen to. Alan Kohler's got the Money Cafe with him and James. So they are something that, I certainly listen to them. They give you some topical information and some things to think about. And some, they certainly have the broader championing the consumer. So they would be ones that I would be also looking at. What else have I read? Oh, you've got to read one of Buffett's. Warren hasn't written any books per se himself, but value investing and those types of things, there's several books out there on that particular topic as well. It is absolutely a minefield.
He gives a few fundamentals away on his becoming Warren Buffett too.
Yes,
in terms
of
the
documentary.
Yep.
You can watch that on YouTube. So there's some good ones there in terms of building up that knowledge. Other commentators that we've enjoyed over the journey. Shout out to Noel Whittaker. His first book on money. When I read it at 16,
got me excited. Absolutely.
was Making Money Made Simple.
Yep.
That transformed my life at 16 years of age. There's some good stuff out there, and so they're the main ones in terms of the share stuff. One of the big things is you don't want to be, it's a fine line between being aggressive in terms of accelerating that out. Yes, I mean if you had invested in Amazon, you wouldn't have to just pay for the deposit. You could pay for the house outright. Some of those things in the States, if you had invested 2 or 3 years ago. So for me, it is about, if I'm share investing, I don't want to call it share investing. What I'm looking at is what's happening in technology, what's happening in the world, what are the things that are going to require enormous amount of human capital and also the ability for businesses to thrive. Aging population says that medical services are going to be, exciting. Look at CSL as a share. That's not a recommendation, but just amazing. Blood plasma services, vaccines, just world leaders out here, set up in Melbourne, out of Broadmeadows, just brilliant. So things like that. There's some technology around 3D printing. There's obviously, we're moving towards battery. So you've got to look at the trends, the bigger trends around what's happening in the world, and then start to identify some of the niches in those markets, because it's the businesses that have the moats, which is the competitive advantages around them. You get onto those businesses. I mean, disclaimer, we do feature in realestate.com.au, but the REA Group have built a very competitive business, great culture,
very good,
great way in which they operate. So there's a lot of different ones out there that you want to be looking at, and people like Alan and Roger and all that, they do a deep dive into some of these companies. They're interviewing the CEOs. You're understanding what's happening in the marketplace. So they would be places that I'd be starting. The boys at Motley Fool also, very clever in terms of their insights and really good at explaining maybe some complex information into pretty simple means for the masses. So I'd be checking out their podcast as well.
But also, Ben, in terms of whichever way you interpret Jamie's question, if it's for a deposit for a property, if he was going to get into margin lending at some point, you need him to be more closer to a blue chip than a specky.
Yep.
And then, of course, people need to be aware of the fact that there's a margin call, which you don't get in property.
Yep.
There's no margin call if the value of the property, although technically they could.
Well, they could call it in, but it's very rare that they do, because that would implode the economy. Too big to fail, as they say.
So in terms of risk reward, there you need to take that into account. But hopefully there's a couple of resources there for you, Jamie, that might be able to help you. And let us know, folks, on our Facebook account if you think there's some others that we should be considering from the share perspective. But mate, 3 really good questions from Nick, Will, and Jamie to cover off this episode. So
keep them coming. So a book's coming out to you, Jamie. Will, you've already got probably a couple of copies, but you can gift that to someone else.
Let him pay it forward.
He'll pay it forward. He'll pass it on to someone else. That's the Armchair Guide to Property Investing. If you haven't already got a copy, you can also find that on our site, can you not?
You can, Ben. You can definitely find it on thepropertycouch.com.au/book. And I think there's a sneaky little code, which we haven't announced for a little while, Ivis. TPC20, was it?
TPC, 20% off.
20%?
20% off the Armchair Guide to Property Investing. It is a couple of years old, but the fundamentals haven't changed. Probably the 18 strategies, and we are going to do the 18 strategies this year. We are committed to stepping out those strategies, so that's something to look forward to. We're going to do a deeper dive into that, which is really exciting. Hopefully coming up in the next couple of months, we'll get into that series, which will be really exciting for our listeners.
There's a way to get one for free. I can show people how to get one with 100% discount.
100% discount?
100%.
Is that Speed Pipe?
Speed Pipe, also known as Speak Pipe.
Oh, Speak Pipe, there we go.
Leave us a question. If we read it out, 100% discount. We'll give you a book for free. So,
beautiful.
Hey, my life hack today, Ben, is when you are searching. My wife was saying this the other day. She was on Airbnb and the price went up.
Yeah.
And then, but looking, and then it went back there and it went up quickly, and then looking on flights. So I did a little bit of research on this. So now
Airbnb for flights.
Okay, I merged 2 conversations, and it was very quick.
All of a sudden, I didn't know Airbnb did
flights, and then I quickly I tangented to the fact that Andrew did this with Airbnb, and then I zipped back to the original, and you didn't see that was so quick. It was like a Jedi move. But so if you're browsing for things with prices like flights, like Airbnb, go into incognito, Ben.
Yes.
Did you know that?
No.
You go into incognito because airlines and travel sites can record your visits by installing cookies on your browser, which can cause the prices you're shown to rise simply because you've searched for those flights before. This is a trick to get you into buying your flights sooner and encourage impulse buying. Avoid it by switching to private browsing when you book your flights.
Nice. So
they're unconfirmed. If there's any of our,
give us some feedback if it's true. It's also like when you.
But I've checked it out and it worked on the sample that I checked it out.
I was registering a domain name recently, and I didn't go right through the whole.
And then it chased you around forever.
Yeah, and it chased me around with further discounts.
Oh well, that's where it works in the positive. But they're obviously doing a scarcity approach, if that's to be believed.
Well, that's scarce too, because I just didn't want to buy it. I'm going to give another 10% off. Oh, is there a little bit more?
Reverse scarcity, isn't it? It's like, well, I'll just wait forever. I'll get this for free. Check it out, folks. Let us know. But from now on, I mentioned that to my wife. She goes, that's probably what happened with Airbnb, which is
there's it. Rightio. So, that's a good one. I like that one.
There we go. Did you know,
Bryce? Just a couple of little odd facts. Just 3 little beauties today.
Yeah.
How many breaths do you reckon we take a year? Oh, no, a day. I should say a day. How many times do we breathe a day?
I don't know.
Ivers?
100 a minute. I don't know. 1,000. 10,000.
10,000. A bit more. Ivers? Or 20,000? No, a little bit more. 23,000 breaths a day. Our little body's working its way, needs to be fed. 23,000 breaths a day. So there you go. Number one.
Can I ask a question? Why wouldn't you answer that? Because it's not as if you, like, it's just a guess. Does that make you nervous still? All right. Ivis doesn't like speaking in front of the microphone.
Stick doesn't like speaking. Okay. Number two, gold never erodes. Never erodes.
That's good to know. If you've
Now,
got
it's
some.
interesting, though, when your gold chain drops off. Is that eroding or is that just wear and tear?
That's just plating, isn't it?
That's just finish or quality.
No, you just got
maybe it isn't gold. I don't wear any jewellery, but that's the point. Anyway, so gold never erodes. So you can sit there and basically wet it down, it won't erode. You can just wear it and tear it. No erosion.
Makes those big bankers in New York feel comfortable, doesn't it?
This one's one of my favourites. It's one of my favourites.
Favourites.
You ready for this?
I am.
What is, I've got to get this out right, 111,111 times...
Oh, lucky you got that out well.
111,111,111. So that times that. What is the answer?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So 111,111,111 times the same.
I do not know.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9
to the power
8,
of 10.
7, 6, 5, 3, 2, 1.
Is that like a palindrome? Went backwards, did it?
Yeah, so it went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 3, 2, 1. That is the answer.
What happened to 4?
Hold on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
You skipped backwards 4 twice.
Did I?
Yeah.
9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Where did you find that?
Well, just look at the world of Google. When you put "did you know" in there, stuff comes up, and you just go, "I'll take that. I like that one."
I like it.
So yes, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Let's have a look.
In terms of how do you pronounce? Is that 12,345,000,000? No, it's not even that. It's even more than a trillion. Oh, I have no idea. 1,000 million. Anyway, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Yeah, you got it that time, didn't you? So, that's insightful, mate. I've got to say, of all those, the gold was probably the most tangible takeaway one. Just to know we've got a bit of a stash. It's not going anywhere. Yeah, the rest, I don't really give a rip. How many breaths I take?
I don't think I'm going to have $111 million. No. So it's probably not going to factor in.
And it's the breaths are only important if I'm running out of them. So
that's the death calculator, maybe
the death clock. Yeah,
the death clock.
No, very good. All right, folks. Thanks very much to Nick. Thanks very much to Will. Thanks very much to Jamie for those wonderful, wonderful questions today. And mate, until next week.
Knowledge is empowering, Bryce, but only if you act on it.
Well said. See you next week.